So this is Animoog Z, released at the end of last year. There's been an update dropped within the last week, and I wanted to just show something that I think is being broken by the update. So I've got Animoog set up, I'm running it inside of AUM. I'm running it alongside my Behringer BCR 2000, mapped to many of the, and indeed most of the useful functions. Got a custom overlay to help me with that. Now the problem is with this mapping. If I just show you what I've got set up in AUM, we look at the MIDI map. The most important thing is we've got the BCR 2000 and we've got Animoog, and that's all you need to know. If we look at Animoog, it's receiving on channel 6 and channel 11. Channel 11 is the keyboard. I've got it mapped to a Casio keyboard and also my KeyStep Pro. The channel 6 is input from the Behringer, and if I look at my MIDI map, going to settings and MIDI, map MIDI, we can see on the main screen we've got a bunch of things mapped. Most importantly, if we go into, where should we go, effects, most of the effects are mapped. So I've got the arpeggiator, the filter, the thick and the delay all mapped to controls on the BCR 2000. If I just illustrate that by, got a note going and that's on hold. If we look at the filter, I'm using my mouse here, so if we look at the filter effect, if I twiddle the knob that's mapped to the, let's say, the resonance on my BCR 2000, you can see the knob is moving here, and indeed you can see it's having an effect. Similarly, if I tweak the frequency knob, that's me varying the frequency. You can see the frequency is also being modulated by something, probably one of the LFOs. If we do the reverse, if I tweak the knob in Animoog and we look over at the BCR 2000, we'll see that follows what's happening, and that's the beauty of the BCR 2000. Of course, these not potentiometers, these controls are all endless rotary encoders, and we have an indicator which shows the current value. The way it's set up, it's a 0 to 127 value on all these rotaries, and that's for the value of the MIDI CC. So it's a two-way mapping, and that's brilliant, works fantastically, but there's a problem, and the problem is this: if we go and change the patch, these are just my favourites. If I switch, in fact, if I go to turn off favourites, go to the Moog standard patches, if I click another one, what we should see is on the BCR 2000, whenever we change a patch, all the MIDI CCs for any control that's mapped to the BCR 2000 should be updated, and all the settings should then be an accurate reflection of what we see in the sim. That doesn't happen, and that's something that's been broken by version 1.0.7, 1.0.7 build 38. Previous version 1.0.6, that worked, I was going to say fine, it did work. There was a problem with toggle switches not being in sync with the hardware. They have addressed that, but in the addressing of that it seems like they've broken everything else. If I just show you that in a little bit more detail, I have got two MIDI monitors mapped here just to try and chase down exactly what's happening. The monitor on the left here is showing messages from the BCR 2000, so if I tweak the resonance knob, we're getting these numbers. Obviously these are difficult to interpret, these are in decimal, but what you need to know is the second column is the channel number. Channels are labelled from 0 in this debug output, so that's channel 6. So it's a message being sent on channel 6. It's MIDI CC 52, I'm looking at the top left one here, and the value 59. If I crank it up, you can see we're getting incremental messages all the way to 127 maximum. If I turn it to minimum, down to minimum. Conversely, if we go into, and that was the resonance knob, if we go into Animoog and tweak the resonance knob, which I'm doing down here, you'll see the trace on the right shows that the MIDI CC,
3 C, 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 3 C,
varying as I tweak that. So that's pretty much convincing evidence that the messages are getting sent in each direction under some circumstances at least. But when we change patches, if we watch the MIDI trace on the right, we should see a whole bunch of things happening, and we don't. I have to just bring Animoog to the front. So watching this trace at the top right, if we just switch to a different patch, we get a few little things happen there each time, but we don't get a comprehensive set of MIDI CC messages. What I think is happening is when we land on the new patch, anything that's mapped to an LFO, we see a MIDI CC sent out for that, but the vast majority of the settings are unchanged. Alright, just in case you're skeptical about whether this should behave as I've described, we're going to get rid of Animoog Z and let's replace it with Animoog. So we've got the same setup. So now we've got Animoog set up, we've got the VCR 2000 programmed for Animoog instead of Animoog Z, we've got the custom overlay swapped. If we look at the filter section over here, if we tweak the frequency knob, that's reflected on screen. If we tweak the resonance knob, that is too. If we click on hold, get some sound going, we tweak those things as we go. That is clearly affecting the sound. If we tweak the knobs on the Animoog screen and watch the VCR 2000, we see that those knobs are indeed reflected. We tweak the volume knob, same deal. Now the important thing is, if we click off hold, we go to swap the patch we have loaded. When we click on that, looking at the VCR 2000, all of the settings change, and they change appropriately. So if we tune in for, let's see, we'll go for acoustic Martian wind chimes, we should see that the frequency knob, just taking the filter module as an example, the frequency knob is at about, well, it's on 6, which is about 1 o'clock position. Resonance is at 0, which is all the way left. Looking over on the VCR 2000, that's what we see. Another, let's say, if we look at the delay module, so if we ignore the numbers, the rate knob is about the 2 o'clock position, which is what we see on the VCR 2000. Feedback is at 12 o'clock, that's what we see. Mix knob is just to the clockwise of 12 o'clock. So that's what we want, and for some reason with the latest update of Animoog Z, we don't have that, which is a bit of a disaster. So we hope Moog will sort that out before long.